Let's now bring in former U.S. Ambassador Chris Hill to unpack the high-stakes trip President Biden is set to take. He's an NBC News diplomacy contributor and the author of Outpost, A Diplomat at Work. Ambassador Hill, thank you so much for being with us. I think you're literally joining us from the airport before a flight, so thank you for making time for us. Now, we know our European allies were shaken by some of the policies of the last president, and frankly, just by his presence at some of these meetings. He would spar with them. He left one early to meet with North Korea's dictator. In addition to these negotiations and his own policies that President Biden will want to discuss, how much repairing does this president just have to do after President Trump?
Well, he's going to do some repairing by just showing up. I mean, this is going to be an enormous change. These previous meetings during the time of President Trump, I mean, no one knew how they were going to end, whether he was going to leave, whether he was going to bring up some new issue that he hadn't prepared anyone for. So I think President Biden, by just being kind of normal and listening a good percentage of the time, is going to do well. But I think he really has his work cut out for him. He needs to deal with some of the hardy perennials of NATO meetings, that is, getting our allies to do more. And he also has to do, very importantly, come up with some initiatives on this global pandemic, because as we see this whole thing waning in the U.S., it's really a huge problem in the global south. And I think the G7 in particular is pretty much tasked with the idea that it has to do more for the global south. So he's going to be busy. And of course, he's got the issue of dealing with President Putin in a relationship that has really been going very south in recent years.
Yeah, so let's talk about that meeting that will take place, that summit, after these G7 meetings. So, of course, Putin at one point was part of what was then the G8, and this meeting sort of looms over this first trip. So after seeing these allies, he's going to head to Geneva for that. What do you think the impact of that upcoming meeting with Putin is that's going to come just days after these meetings, and how should the White House navigate that impact with these G7 leaders?
Well, first of all, President Biden is going to improve the relationship with the G7. I mean, they're going to have problems. They're going to have issues about how to go forward, a pandemic, et cetera. But overall, you're going to get an impression of an alliance that's much stronger as a result of President Biden going there. So that's going to be a good story to go into the Putin meeting. I don't anticipate any kind of major developments in the Putin meeting, except I think Putin will understand that he's dealing with a formidable U.S. administration that I think is going to kind of lay out the agenda, and the agenda is going to be very tough, including these cyber attacks. So we're going to see, I think, an opportunity for the president to really show he's in charge. And you know, he's been, this is not his first rodeo by any means. I think he's going to be able to manage this pretty well.
Yes, certainly a president with quite a bit of foreign policy experience. But let's take out the White House spin. And you kind of just started to touch on this as far as what defines a true win from this trip, from these meetings. So first with the other G7 leaders, but also if we do look ahead to that Putin meeting, because as you just mentioned, there's a lot to cover here. Cyber attacks that are getting worse by the day, but we've already heard that we shouldn't expect any real deliverables to come out of it. So what is a win?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, Putin isn't going to admit to anything. He's going to be very cautious himself. But I think a win would be the president kind of laying out the agenda. I don't think we're going to have these weird one-on-one meetings where no one really knew what happened. I think it's going to be very well scripted. There'll be, briefings afterwards. It'll look very serious. And so I think the win will be for President Biden to come back to the states with a view in the states, because he's really got to play to his domestic audience of a president very much in charge. So I think he's going to look very good in all of this. The question is whether he can get an agenda that the Russians kind of agree to talk about, and whether he can work especially on this cyber stuff, because this is getting pretty serious.
Ambassador Hill, thank you for that one. Something to watch is for no weird one-on-one meetings. I like that.
That's
and
right.
If that's your gate behind you, your flight's boarding, so don't miss it on our account. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. All right.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.